Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly. On this episode, I'm joined by fly designer, author, outfitter, and all-around fishy dude Greg Senyo. We start in Girard, Pennsylvania, and cover it all from early mentors to building his brand, Schultz Outfitters, Montana Fly Company, and his latest endeavor, the Pack Mule 300. Greg is never afraid to tell you what he thinks, so strap in for a little unvarnished Senyo. But before we get to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you like the podcast, please tell a friend, and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. It really helps us out. And a shout out to our sponsor, Trout Routes. As I mentioned last time, I've known Zach and the team at Trout Routes almost before Zach had a team at Trout Routes. We all know streams are getting crowded, and chances are you're not the only one at your local access point. Get away from the crowds and busy gravel lots by using Trout Routes Pro with over 350,000 access points mapped across 50,000 trout streams and much more. Trout Routes has all the data you need to help you find angling opportunities that others will overlook. Up your game and download the app today. Use code ARTFLY20, ARTFLY20, all one word, for 20% off your Trout Routes Pro membership at maps.troutroutes.com. Now, on to our interview. Well, Greg, welcome to The Articulate Fly.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to hear your voice. I hope you had a good day today.
Yeah, it was good. You know, I've been digging out. I was slacking last week out fishing, so I'm kind of back in the saddle. But glad we were able to make this happen. And we have a tradition on The Articulate Fly, Greg. We like to ask all of our guests to share their earliest fishing memory.
Earliest, oh man, I'd have to go all the way back to being like 6, 7, 8 years old. Opening day of trout season in Pennsylvania with my dad. We used to get up super early, go to the Legion Park in Girard, and have this community breakfast before you would get down on the river. And it brings back memories, all that kind of stuff. When you ask what's your earliest memory, the smell of salmon eggs in a jar, salted minnows, guys putting grubs on, all that ultralight fishing for stock trout. It's kind of the first place I fell in love with everything Elk Creek was just the atmosphere of that traditional trout opener in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and you probably ate enough pancakes that you felt too sick almost to fish, right?
No, I could shovel it in when I was little, man. I could never get enough. I was hungry 10 minutes later.
Yeah. Link sausages too, I imagine, right?
Oh yeah. 100%.
And they weren't the turkey link sausages, just for the record, folks.
No. Oh no. It was a giant pile of the good stuff.
Yeah. And so Greg, when did you come to the dark side of fly fishing?
It was still really young. I was lucky. I had a best friend that Jason Gregory is his name, that he was fly fishing, and he was kind of that first person I saw doing it, and I wanted to do that. And that's how I would say I would got into it. And then I went up to, we had a buyer's fair in Girard. And I bought myself a Martin rod reel combo from them. And when you got Elk Creek at your feet, it's full. At that time, it was full of coho, kings, brown trout. You had steelhead. It was like the best place you could grow up as a young kid wanting to fly fish.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, those kind of good old days where you were kind of turned loose as a kid, right?
100%.
Right. Like, and it's kind of funny, like, no one was worried about you getting abducted. All you had to do was kind of be home, by dark. Right.
Well, that's the nice thing with small communities too. Everybody's kind of spread out and live in different areas. Jason used to live right above the hill on this side. I lived in town on that side of the creek, so it's sun up till sundown. I mean, you were always a quick walk to somebody's house to get a ride if you needed one. So it was perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Does anyone kind of come to mind that you would say kind of mentored you on your fly fishing journey? And you can have more than one.
Yeah, I didn't really have the traditional mentor to use the term for. Like I said, I think I would credit my friendship with Jason here. He was always wanting to explore, and he had the same energy I did. He wanted to fish every waking moment of our youth. Just how many days and how many hours can we spend out there, especially during steelhead? That was pretty much the pinnacle point that set everything in motion for me. If I had to credit somebody, I would credit Clyde Murray, which worked up at Follies and Fly Shop. He was a gem. It's sad that he's not around anymore. He could have benefited a lot of people still today, but he took my fly tying skills to another level and gave me the motivation and gave me some determination to go ahead and have the courage to do some of the different things I wanted to do. So those would be, the people that early on, like, kind of helped give me, that energy to keep going.
Yeah. And I would imagine too, kind of given the time period, that was probably a truly kind of old school fly shop, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're talking 500 square feet, just a small little place right next to the river. And then Follies End is a campground, which still is, it all exists today. You can still go to the fly shop. You can go to the campground. And it's like one of those, like, out of a storybook, just that small little shack on the river, surrounded by campers and tents. And, it's like the perfect place to go.
Yeah. It's interesting too, right? So, if we fast forward a little bit, you got absolutely sucked into to the belly of the beast, and you've been a guide, you've been an outfitter, you're an author, fly tyer, and fly material designer. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of how you started sliding down that slippery slope?
Yeah, it's a long ride. I look at it from how I see things get done today to how we used to do them back then. I mean, it started for me at just being a young kid tying flies and for my local fly shops. And, that goes to getting noticed from authors that are at that time, putting their books and their magazines and stuff inside the stores. So I got noticed by, like, Matt Sapinski, John Nagy, some of those people. And then I started getting put in, like, Fly Fisherman magazine and their articles, their books. And it was just really, as a young kid, it's just really cool to see your stuff, get noticed like that. And then from there, I started guiding. I had an opportunity. I don't give this gentleman that much credit, and I don't know why, but Don Matthews, kind of showed me the finer points of guiding. He at least gave me a template that I can, that I used and, put my own spin on it, how I wanted to provide a level of service at the time. But I was grateful for that kind of introduction in the guide world, and then from there, you get endorsed by major companies. Like, for example, I got endorsed by Orvis. I won the Fly Tower of the Year. I was given an opportunity to develop my own signature flies and materials through Orvis and Hareline. That helped me use my reputation to, pretty much put my name in every fly shop in the country. And doing that with my material branding and my just branding in general, I was able to form Steelhead Alley Outfitters. Then, from there, I started guiding out. We took over guiding for many of the local fly shops and provided their steelhead guiding for them. And eventually we just brought all of our services in-house and just preferred to keep a higher level of service. Then, you do the normal stuff. You continued lecturing, meeting people, writing, consulting. I, developed more stuff with inside the industry for several other companies. Like I did stuff with UP and Flyman. So, I started to focus on the success of my team and my company, and I kept it that way. Decided to, try to lead from the front, set a good example. And, I just never compromised with any of my competition, and then I ended everything with, I wrote my own book, which it's pretty rare these days, to have a book like mine win best new book at ICAST and, mistakes and all. So I was pretty happy with that. And, I stayed true to myself, and I put in a ton of hard work and long hours with really very little sleep. So, and that kind of, puts you into where you're at now and how hard you want to push moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting too, right? Because that culture is certainly durable because, I know you sold SAO, but, Patrick and those guys are still running the same program the same way and being very, very successful.
Yeah. All those guys, everybody plays an important role in anything that you do. And, Patrick, has been with SAO since the beginning. So I really don't expect anything less from him. And not only that, they put their own new age kind of spin on it. And I think that's been very welcome too. So, how it is, sometimes out with the old, in with the new, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting too, right? Because you have a reputation for being mildly opinionated, right?
I'm totally opinionated.
And so I thought it would be interesting, when I get someone who's been around the industry so long to kind of get their thoughts on, direction of the industry pet peeves and stuff like that. Is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, so we're okay. So if we're going to do pet peeves, I'm going to scroll through a bunch of lists right here. You ready?
I'm ready.
We'll start at the top. So anybody born after Generation X, how's that? So anybody in this industry after Gen X, I really don't like you. So just so you know, any type of fishing shirt with a embroidery below the shoulder, especially like cocked chickens or shrimp. I mean, you just look like an asshole. I don't like that kind of shirt. Any Toyota Tacoma. Tell me you're a fishing guy without telling me you're a fishing guy, right? So YouTube, fly shop professors think they need to teach me something every day. I can't wait to see a video on dude white. Like, do we really need it? But I'm sure somebody will show us how to use them. I'm not a fan of social media handles. I call them warning labels. I don't like the public figure, board member, pro staffer, life coach. I encourage people to try to remember it's not a job interview. It's not a dating site. It's not a AA meeting. Just use your real name. It's okay just to be yourself. Treat it like an introduction. I'd rather know who I'm talking to than some weird name or phrase or somebody try to give me advice on the first second that I notice you. So any type of fly tire that uses epoxy on dry flies, that is not art. That isn't a merger. I'm just letting you know. Any type of fly fishing content that comes out of Flyman Fishing Company, it is horrible. If you do any type of watching social media, I usually, when I'm in the restroom, it is that bad. So anyone old enough to need readers and uses Barbie dolls in their fly tying videos, there's a lot of red flags there. That dude's definitely on Epstein's list. So anyways, I could get as crazy with this as you want, man. I have lots of pet peeves just like anybody else. I don't like people driving the left lane. I don't like people talking in the movie theater. We can go on and on, man. You know how this works.
Well, I don't want to get you too spun up because we got a fair amount of wood to chop. But it's interesting too, right? So, of all the things that you've contributed to the industry, and we'll carve out the pet peeves. It's kind of like a Letterman's top 15 list. Yeah. What are you most proud of and why?
The most proud thing is just, being able to provide the materials I've been able to do over the years and just seeing so many people that are using it for how long they've been using it. I'm really proud of that. Number one thing is being what everybody else comes up with from that. So if I had to pick one thing that I would say, what is the most proud, that would be it. but I am proud of a couple other things as well. I'm proud of the small number of lifelong friends I've made, friends I've gained as being a part of this industry. And I'm really happy I kind of stayed true to my character, like, who I was as a person, a guide, as a tire, as a friend, as a part of my community. I listen. I try to help where I can. I make myself available to anyone who seriously wants my help. But at the same token, you're going to, if you ask me for advice, you better understand the kind of answer you're going to get. So, it's just the way it rolls. So I'm proud of all of those things that I didn't have to fake it. I kind of just did me.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because when people ask for my opinion at this point now, I almost feel compelled to say, do you really want, some constructive feedback, or you want me to just affirm you?
Yeah. It's almost fair that you have to do that. It just saves you a lot of time and not giving somebody good advice if they're not going to take it.
Yeah. And then they walk away butthurt and you're a bad guy. So, yeah, it's interesting too, right? So, I've listened to, preparing for this, I always listen to folks' previous interviews. And, I know there was a point at which you realized you were spending too much time in the industry and you needed to shift your priorities. I was wondering if you could tell us a little about, what happened for you to kind of come to that decision.
I mean, the number one thing that happens is you grow up, and, I had a family, and, none of, I look at, everybody thinks like everybody's friends in the fly fishing industry, right? Like, I don't think they understand that, like, most people don't even know most people's background. I mean, you learn some, but you don't know. You don't truly know who people are. You only know who they are through their fishing. So for me, having a family and having kids, that kind of screws that light bulb in. And like, that's the time where it's like, I have to shift my priorities. And the main reason for that is, like, I was kind of raised in a broken family. My mom had moved on while we were young. It was a very hard time for my brother and I, but you take little pieces of that and you kind of carry it with you everywhere you go. I don't want my kids or my wife or anybody to deal with that. I don't want to miss my kids' sports. I kind of like being a homebody. Don't take me wrong. I had a good childhood. Like, my family was excellent. They made the best out of everything, and my extended family is like a welcome, you know what I mean? So, but like I said, you carry little bits and pieces of everything with you, and like, you start using those to compare, for like when you're raising your own kids, like, you can only go by what or what has happened to you. You have your own story to live, your own mistakes to make, and your own victories to celebrate. So you just got to jump in 2 feet.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because I think, having those situations in your childhood, if you can use them as motivation and drive, right? Like, I had some things kind of in my childhood, and it's kind of like, to your point, like, I wouldn't want my boys to go through any of that, but it's made me who I am. And I don't know how I would be sitting here talking to you today in the way that I am if I hadn't gone through that stuff.
No, it's 100% right. And, another key point to look at this with your kids is, like, to be really a good fishing guide or to be invested in this industry, like, you got to be 100% in, and I wasn't, kind of willing to not be able to show my kids, archery, backpacking, hunting, camping, the other things that, I kind of had to give up to stay fishy, right? You know what I mean? So those were also like contributing factors on wanting to dial it back. We start spending time, and you know what? I'm enjoying myself more. My kids are enjoying themselves more. I don't miss anything. You know what I mean? So I'm not disappointed by that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, gosh, we could have a complete podcast series on parenting and raising kids. Greg, I was kind of wondering if, kind of in this whole shift, did you ever kind of hit a wall or kind of feel like a line was crossed that kind of kept pushing you in a certain direction?
Absolutely. I mean, I hate to say it. There was a time where I kind of let other people, kind of influence kind of what I was going to do or what I was going to say. I just don't allow that anymore. But, when people and companies and stuff don't, didn't appreciate your investment any longer, I didn't want to feel that way. You know what I mean? I was tired of being angry at that. And, the years of loyalty and service, I felt like they weren't appreciated. And then you started seeing the devaluing of industry talent in favor of the theatrics and the fakeness you see on media. Like it just wasn't a path I was willing to take. And you were just continually hassled by companies and customers to feed them content daily. And, like I even was told that I'm in risk of losing my value and my reputation, over all the years of work, all the hard work, effort, and everything else. I'm going to lose that if I don't stay relevant on social media. Could you guess what my answer to that was?
Yeah, it probably starts with an F, right?
Yeah, it was fuck you. Straight up.
Yeah. But
that was it.
Yeah, but that's an interesting thing, Greg, because I mean, I see this, in the industry where, a lot of people are, well, first of all, I would say a lot of these guys could rule the world if they would return phone calls and emails. Like that would be kind of point number one, right? Which takes us back to being a Gen Xer, right? But I would say,
right,
one of the things that it's interesting to me is I think a lot of people start in the industry and they're really young, right? And so they're hustling, right? Like probably like you and I did when we were like hustling as kids, cutting grass and paper routes and all that sort of stuff. And, they don't want to say no to anything. But the problem is you fast forward 20 years and you put the time in and they still interact with people like they're 18 years old.
Yes, very much so.
Right. And so it's like,
very much so.
They feel like they have to do everything and they never, to your point, stop and say, why am I doing this way? If I am more valuable, like, why am I valuable? It's because I've invested in myself. Right. It's not because I'm posting stuff prolifically on social media. Yeah, dude, I think it's a fascinating thing. I mean, and so, those are, it's always interesting, right? I always say the fishing is just the bicycle for the interview and the conversation, but there's a lot of like life stuff there, right? And so, kind of curious, how you kind of put that all together and made it work for you.
I mean, you identify, number one, that, you don't like this stuff, right? This extra curricular stuff that kind of got added to the fishing world. So, for me, I just quit listening to people. I don't walk around lacking self-confidence. I work, which many know, maybe some don't, but I was a police officer for over 20 years as well. So, you kind of get to the point where you've been through enough that you can start making choices to live with consequences. It's, it came down to, I just wanted to do me, even if it meant doing it alone. Like I just didn't have the stomach to be a part of the circus. And that's how I made it work for me. And then I started doing all the other things. And then when I was fishing, I was starting to enjoy fishing again. Like when I tie flies now, I tie because I want to tie and I enjoy it, and I'm going to use them for something. You know what I mean? I'm not just tying to have a whole bunch of them laying around anymore. So I get way more enjoyment out of it, and then I do other fishing things too. I fish gear now a little bit, which I gave up for all those years of fly fishing, and I look at it this way: is I'd rather be happy and a well-rounded angler than a miserable fly angler. You know, there's a lot of miserable fly anglers out there. Like, I don't, like, you know, I'm just, if you could see me right now, I'm sticking my foot out, like, get away from me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be around that. You know what I mean? So, you know, and then not only that, you know, like, you know, everybody I see, it's like everybody's looking for some type of personal challenge. You know, I hunt more than I fish. And I do this in places my phone don't work. Go do something where you got to think for yourself, where the actions of your day or what you gauge the success of your day is in your hands. You know, that's the one thing I love about hunting versus fishing right now is fishing. I felt like I was rewarded every day. I could get a fix every day. Even a bad day of fishing, I was successful. You know, hunting, you could go weeks, months. You make decisions because it's based on life and death, and, you know, it's a food source, and there's other things at stake. You know what I mean? You know, it's more adult for me. It's the way I look at it. It's more satisfying for me mentally to do those kind of things. You know, helps me block out all the noise. You know, so that's how you make it work for you.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I guess one of the ways I say something similar is, you know, if you're truly lucky, you get to pick the hill you're going to die on.
100%.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing too is, and you probably saw this, is when you started, you know, being you and not being who people wanted you to be, that you probably became even more successful.
You know, if I'm being fair on that question, like, more successful in the sense of I was a much happier person. I had less, like I said, noise when I started doing everything how I wanted to do it and not taking in consideration anybody else. You know what I mean? Or, you know, made it about team and family and my atmosphere above all else, right? You know, that was a lot easier than trying to deal with what everybody else wants you to do. So if that's what you mean by being more successful, I agree, because, you know, it made me more focused, made you happy. And like, when you're happy, you're better. You do better on all fronts when you're happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I've got my oldest son as a rising senior in college, and we're talking about, like, you know, find that thing that fulfills you, and it will make your days a whole lot easier, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's, I wish I would have found that younger, you know? Like, for me, it's so funny as you look at this whole thing, like, when you're young and you're getting into this, you're like super excited. Your energy level and your stoke level are like super, super high, right? And even as you get older, you don't lose that. You don't lose that enthusiasm, but you do lose like that iron wall you put up. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't have the youth as you get older to like continually want to fight the same kind of battle over and over and over and over again. So, like, if I could go back to the day, that one point where it's like, you know, took the red pill versus the blue pill, right? If I could go back to that point, you know, there is a part of me that would take the other pill and just keep fishing, just keep it fun, you know, not make it part of my job or my livelihood, or, you know, keep it exactly, you know, what it was when we all start and decide that we want it to be more, is it's a hobby. You know, it's something we love to do to take away all the pain from all the hours of work. So anyways, you know.
And so, you know, of the many hats that you wear, one of the hats is you're the general manager at Schultz Outfitters. And, you know, just like some folks, you know, may not have known that you were a cop in your prior life, they may not know how you and, you know, Mike got hooked up and how you ended up at SO.
Well, many, many moons ago, I used to go up and do fly tying classes at Colton Bay, which was just outside of Ann Arbor, and Mike was the store manager there. So, we kind of hit it off first couple of times we ever met, and over time, I asked Mike if he was willing to come down and guide for me at Steelhead Outfitters, for the springs, and he did. He came down for years to help us run our guiding and stuff over there, and eventually he was like, "Hey, man, someday I'm going to open a store," and he's like, if I ever do that, would you help come run a store with me? And I made that promise, and like our friendship had grown to be almost like family. So here we are. I'm at the shop.
Yeah. And so how many years ago was it when you first met Mike?
Oh, well, that's like putting a guy on the spot. It's like my wife asking me what the date of our anniversary is. Got to check my calendar for that. Early 2000s.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. A long time. It's been 20 plus more years, maybe a little longer.
Yeah. That, and particularly as you get older, that's super cool. And, one of the things that really struck me, I had a chance to, meet you in person at Bob and the Hood earlier this year. And, you kind of, to your point, you see the internet stuff, but then you have to be in the store to see the real stuff. And I was absolutely blown away. I mean, I've been in tons of fly shops. I fished with lots of people, but I was really blown away at the culture inside Schultz Outfitters. And I was kind of wondering, if you could talk a little bit about, what you and Mike and the rest of the team have done there that makes you different from other shops and outfitters.
I think you said it right there. Team is everything. Our whole team can walk the walk. We have everything that we need to have a successful business. Like some of our guys are college educated in business. We have good fishing guides. We have great instructors. We have fly tiers. We have innovators, developers, entertainers, travelers. And most importantly, we're all anglers, like continually on the water, or have some kind of part to play, related to fishing. So, that alone eliminates 90% of the fly shops that are out there. They don't have that. Okay. And then on top of that, we just focus on us. We focus on our local fisheries, but we excel everywhere. We're about our warm water fishing opportunities. How many fly shops do you go to that has a focus on smallmouth, carp, muskie, pike? It's not most of the places when you associate a fly shop, you think of trout. We can do that. We do that, but it's not our main focus. So I think that's why a lot of people, come visit us and they trust us, is because we're very honest. We're super hardworking. The customers that we tend to deal with are fishy people in their own right. Like these guys are traveling, they're doing things, they're going all over, they're fishing with talent across the country, if not across the globe. So you thrive in that kind of atmosphere. And then even the new people that are walking through the door, like most of the ones that we see, they have a desire to become those type of fishy people. So we're lucky from that standpoint that, we have that kind of customer wanting to come see us. And, we focus that we're going to continually maintain a high degree of personal education and expectations when you come to the store, and just think of all the things I just said. I'm just highlighting our team and like what we can do on our storefront. We don't even have an online store yet, and we're pretty much keeping up with everybody else. Just think when we do open the online store, and you know what, someday, shortly down the road, that's going to happen. So we don't need that bullet yet. We're saving it for when we're ready, and choosing to be more of the place that you should want to talk to us. You should want to ask us questions. You should let us help you pick out your gear. That's what all the years of hard work have given our local community. And that's the one thing I love about being a part of this whole industry is this aspect right here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would say Schultz Outfitters is probably one of the few places that I would buy natural materials from sight unseen and trust that I was going to get what I wanted when I opened the envelope.
Well, yeah, because we're going to hand pick it for you.
Yeah. And the team thing's impressive. I can remember, it's been in the early years of the podcast, I interviewed Mike, and I remember one of the things that was really memorable from that interview, because it's probably been 4 years ago, was, his desire for the store to be successful was because he wanted to take care of his guys, right? And he wanted them to be able to have a house and raise their families and be in the community. And I thought that was unusual. And to our point, kind of some of the things we've talked about the industry being something that's kind of rarer and rarer today, right?
Well, when you have that kind of leadership, why would you not want to work with somebody like that? Somebody that's going to have, a general interest in his own people. Like there's a lot of opportunities to work for people that aren't like that. And I can attest to it because I've worked with a lot of those people before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll compare tattoos with you the next time we get together.
There you go.
So, kind of pulling back to the tying, you kind of mentioned some of the companies at the beginning of the interview. But, you've had the opportunity to work with kind of, the top tier tying material companies in the industry for the last 20 years, right? And I was kind of curious if you could kind of tell us like how that started and what it was like, working with each of those companies.
Just so you know, like it was a blessing to be able to be granted a lot of these opportunities. And, that first opportunity was, like I said, I was endorsed through Orvis and, I had an idea for materials and Sean Brillen was working in their development department at the time. And he made an introduction with me with Marcos at Hareline. And that's kind of what started everything for me having the opportunities. And you saw Laser Dub and all the numerous other opportunities for material come out after that. And like I said, not to be, misleading or anything. It was a little bit of luck, I guess. The hard work, all that stuff was there, but I was lucky that I had somebody willing to make an introduction for me. And that's how I was able to, kind of build my brand moving forward.
Yeah. It's kind of like getting rebounds in basketball, right? You got to stay around the rim.
100%. Yeah. That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. So you started out with Hareline. Who are some of the other folks you've worked with in the industry? And we'll talk about Montana Fly Company in a minute.
No, that's great. I've helped EP, Flyman Fishing Company. But my primary obviously was working with Hareline. I think, we spent almost 2 decades putting together some amazing materials. So it's not hard to do so when you work with such an amazing group of people. It's like I said, it was a privilege to be a part of that.
Yeah. And the great thing is they're almost completely set up in Michigan now. So you'll be able to go have dinner with Marcos anytime you want to, right?
Yeah. They just moved to Michigan. Knowing how fast they move, they are probably up and operational at this point.
Yeah. And so, kind of fast forward a little bit, you currently are working for Montana Fly Company, and they were all over the place at Bob and the Hood. And I was really impressed that the new owner has aggressively kind of moved into, predator flies and tying materials. And I was kind of curious because I didn't have a chance to talk to him, how did that come about? And, how did you get involved in the racket?
So I got approached by Phil Cook, who's a regional fishing rep and a good friend of mine. And he had reached out on Montana Fly Company's behalf of like, hey, there's some opportunities out here, and new owner, and just really fishy and highly aggressive group of guys that want to go after it again, So we were able to work out a contract, and I've got, you met Justin just like I did at Bobbin, and he's more my age, or our age bracket. He's a straight shooter. Likes to get his hands dirty. I can't ask for really anything more, right? Like working. Those are the kind of guys I like to work with, is ones that really just get in the group with you, So, like I said, again, it's somebody bringing an opportunity to the table to take your talents and push them to something else, So I think you guys are gonna be happy with everything you see. We've already launched one material, but we'll have a whole bunch more coming in the future here.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I'm always kind of watching stuff, and I would say, not just the move. Like, I can remember seeing the Golden Fly Shop display, and they used to have an old school, like luncheon meat freezer from a grocery store that was full of streamers. But the thing that kind of blew me away at Bobbin was, everyone that's got patterns with them, they had a small, it was almost like a large, flag that was on their table that said, "I'm with Montana Fly Company," right? And then just the innovation in the new materials. But, you could tell that there was something different about what was going on than you would see, if you went to a trade show and walked around and looked at, 6 different material companies.
Oh, well, not only that, look at, like we said, the big streamer flies, right? So, Russ Madden's now with Montana Fly Company. I think Matt Grajewski's got his flies there. So, you add that to Kelly Gallup and just the Midwest talent that's a part of that stable. Like, I feel like I'm getting to work with people I know already, like your neighbors, right? Getting to work with your neighbors. It's kind of really nice. There was a long time where, I used to get really disappointed because I felt like all my buddies were all working with different companies, right? And there was seemed like there was always this unwritten rule, like you can't work together, you can't highlight somebody else's hard work or the materials or their stuff because you work for somebody else and they offer something similar. I feel like everybody being under this label, I don't feel like we go through that often anymore. So I kind of appreciate those kind of things too, especially now that we're not childish now, right? It's the way it felt back then. It's really, really, this is what we do. This is how we act.
Yeah, it's the Ghostbuster problem, right? You can't cross the streams.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but you know what? Now you're starting to see a lot more of that now, and and I'm hoping that continues. I think that will solve a lot of problems. You know what I mean? So, because let's face it. Most of the innovations and stuff coming out today, they're all merit. They're all pretty good. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming out across the board. Just technology alone in fly fishing has already pushed itself into a whole nother category. Even so much I'm degressing, I'm fishing more glass and old reels that I find in garage sales and stuff like that versus this high tech stuff, right?
Yeah. It's interesting too, right? So for folks that don't know, can you, Greg, tell us the products that you currently have released with Montana Fly Company?
So we just released the matte satin chenilles. We did both a cactus and a polar type chenille. And it's the first, it's matte. Okay. So there's no reflection to it whatsoever. It focuses more on color. So it's kind of the first of its type. Most chenilles you see are flashy or opaque or, got some kind of UV and stuff to it. These are truly bland, matte, so you think low water brown trout flies, big pike and muskie fly, all that kind of stuff. Like you can really dig into it with this kind of chenille. I'm excited about it. So it's gaining a lot of ground, and it's also hit the saltwater market very well.
Yeah, very, very neat. And can you share with us anything that's kind of in the production pipeline that people can be on the lookout from you?
Well, I mean, we're going to have a few new dubbings, and there's going to be some other chenilles and brushes and stuff like that. And down the road, no, I think there's going to be a lot coming in the future based on everything we've already got in the pipeline. So I think it's going to be worth the wait. We're just getting started. I don't want to pump something that, could come out later than something else. You know what I mean? So, but there'll be a lot, and I'm excited about it, and you should be too. So if you like the tie, I know it's all stuff. I like the tie. This is stuff I want to use.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, shifting gears a little bit, we were talking about, how, you started your family and you kind of thought to kind of reprioritize things. And, we were talking before we started interviewing, you've also in the last, 2 years had a couple, I guess what Generation X people would call check engine light moments. And I was wondering if you could share those with us and kind of tell us how that kind of reinforced your path.
Well, a couple of years ago, I had, when that second strain of COVID came through, I got that, and I ended up getting pneumonia and blood clots at the same time. So it was pretty scary time there for me and my family. I spent like 11 days in ICU, and wasn't looking good. And then, I pulled through, and then I was on home care for another month, and but we made it, right? We made it through that one, and then it forced me to get in a little better shape, and I went elk hunting in Montana. I went deer hunting, and January 1st the following year, I had a pretty significant heart attack where I had to have a stent placed immediately, and then I had to go back and get 2 more placed. So it's really kind of hard to ignore all the things that are trying to kill you. So yeah, you definitely reevaluate. Like, I guess time and mortality are definitely a big part of my thought process anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I'm a little bit older than you, but it's kind of, you get to a point where it's like you try to kind of ignore it for a while, but at some point you can't deceive yourself that you've got more tomorrows than yesterdays, right?
I think that way every day. Like, there's no more like waking up and kind of taking the day for granted. I hate that I have to feel that way, but there's some solace in it too. You know what I mean? Like, you make sure you tell your kids what you need to tell them at night. You tell your wife that you love her and stuff like that every night before you go to bed. So you don't just assume you're granted tomorrow. But I hope I have a whole bunch of tomorrows left. As many as possible.
Yeah. I would also say too, though, that, right, if you use it the right way, right, it gives you a lot more focus to get done what you want to get done.
Yeah, there's just such an urgency to get done what I want to get done, and, it's like you say about like prioritizing and reevaluating. And, you can't take for granted that your mind thinks a different way. And like what you had, the 5-year plan you had is gone. You know what I mean? The previous plan is gone. You kind of, what can I do to, for me, what can I immediately do to rectify this problem? And that's kind of how I've lived since all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that, you recently completed the Pack Mule 300 charity hike. You want to tell us, like, what on earth made you decide to do something like that?
Sure. So yeah, for anybody that's not aware of that. So, what I did was I hiked from my house here in Michigan to my hunting camp in the Allegheny National Forest. And the reason for it was to raise money for the high school lacrosse teams. And, both my sons play lacrosse. So, I really wanted to set an example of hard work and, I kind of help them find that another gear within inside themselves and like what they can accomplish. So that's why I did, what I did. And I will tell you right now that I will probably never attempt that again. It took me to pretty much my breaking point.
Yeah. It's, you were telling me like, hotter than you thought, less water, right?
Oh, I had to reevaluate everything, like, I mean, I can't even, it's, the mental game, the hydration, like, help, the whole 9 yards, like your feet put the miles in, but like, if I didn't have the help I had, I would have never made something like that. You know what I mean? And, when you're trying to set an example for a bunch of kids, like that's what's kind of driving you to get it done. Like, it's a long ways. I wanted my kids to not have an excuse, right? To fail. So if I looked at it as like, if I failed at something like this, like, I set an example that, it's okay to quit. And I just didn't want to do that. I'm just not that kind of person. If it killed me, it was going to kill me. And, part of something like that too is, I just told you about the heart attacks and the COVID and all that stuff. And, I don't like things telling me what to do, which I'm sure you've heard that before. I kind of had to prove to myself again that I'm like not just going to belly up and die, so I had to push myself to another level of unsureness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's, you're trying to be better every day than you were yesterday, right?
Sometimes I'm still bad, just so you know. I'm still a villain.
You're one of the bad boys of fly fishing, but I mean, pushing yourself and kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, right? And there's, this whole parenting component, like, you can't tell your children how to live their life and not model that behavior, right? That's a huge thing, I think, right?
Yeah, it's an important thing.
Yeah, I think, also, not expecting other people to fix your problems, right? Like, we don't have enough money for our lacrosse team. Well, how are we going to fix that?
Yeah. And I mean, this is, I think, we have talked about this before, but like my idea of charity is a lot different sometimes than other people's idea of charity. Like I'm never going to be the guy who goes, knocks on people's doors and asks for money. I'm never going to be a guy that stands at a gas station, tries to sell somebody a discount card. I'm not going to be the kind of guy that just organizes other people to do hard work for them, to get credit for doing charity. I'm just not my style. I want to be responsible for putting the work in. And, most importantly, when you're doing charity, you're not supposed to get a personal benefit from it. So there's no personal benefit here for me. Like it's truly charity. It's benefiting these kids in every way, not only in the way of monetary, having extra money that they need to have a successful season, but it's showing them an example of hard work and determination. It's showing them some mental toughness where they got to learn to win the battle of yourself. It's showing them the importance of friendship and teamwork, because I had people helping me along the way, and it also helps you handle the pressure of, that pure negativity that we always see, shows them that they don't have to validate that they can defeat it. I hear it. There's always, I'm doing charity, right? And there's always that one or two people out there that are like, oh yeah, he's not really doing it. Somebody's somebody's picking them up and moving them here. There's somebody's doing this. There's, anything to, make it so you come out the bad guy, right? There's always just like, it's a great example still to show the kids that for my kids to see that, like that you can doesn't matter how much hard work you do, how much stuff you put in, how much effort you put in for somebody else, like you're never going to make everybody happy. So, I mean, all that kind of stuff was there. Every element of what I wanted this to be, was there. And then, like I said, there was some of it. My benefit was I realized I wasn't going to die tomorrow. Like all this medical stuff, I can kind of overcome it, and then you kind of learn who your friends are, right? You kind of learn who the kind of people, like I was really shocked at some of the people that came to my aid. A lot of them strangers. Okay. So, the people that I thought would jump in and walk a few miles, like they didn't show up. So, it's, you learn a lot about, yourself and the people around you by doing something like that.
Yeah. But, back on the kid thing, like, in this day and age, right, kind of, tying back to the Generation X thing, like, seeing that life's not fair, right? Is a super powerful life lesson. So you don't walk around waiting, for some magical something to happen for you. But then I also think the other thing too, and, particularly, raising kids, but I think true in life, it's like, well, I can't do that. I was like, well, how do you know? Because you haven't tried. Right. And so, it's kind of funny because, I had that sort of mindset, particularly in the large law firm practice, which is we were going to put the flag on the hill or everyone was going to be dead. Right. Like those were the two options, right? We're going to die trying or we're going to put the flag on the hill. And that, not everything in life has to be that way. But I think learning that lesson about, to your point, like, how do you know what you can do until you try to do it?
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of what this whole thing was, it's almost like life in 10 days. If there was some kind of an emotion, a problem or a success or, a bad thought, like every minute of that journey for 10 days.
Yeah.
So.
That's your second book title.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is I don't know if I have it in me anymore to sit and write my own book, to have another, to do that again. I don't even think it's worth it. That's me. I'm just saying, like as much as I thought about doing another book, I think I'll, how you said, die on the hill and plant the flag. I think I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. And then also too, you get to a point where you don't have as many things to prove anymore.
What's funny is you never start out having anything to prove anyway. So you just find something that you got to prove to yourself. It's usually you're trying to prove something to somebody else. You're trying to prove somebody else wrong. I hate to say it that way. Like if you sit down and you actually think about it, like I don't know how many times, like in law enforcement, I did better just to prove somebody else wrong. I didn't really care if I did it for myself or not. You know what I mean? There's a lot of times we allowed things to influence us, not from a phone, but, that's today's problem. But you get where I'm going with this, So I don't know. To each their own. Everybody's different. I try not to pass judgment until unless you do stupid shit online, then, sorry, like all hands, I'm done. You've lost it. You enjoy being you, but I'm out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care.
Yeah. So to pull us back to a slightly more positive frame of reference, you want to give a shout out to some of the people that showed up for you while you were on the hike?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jeff Lasquet showed, I don't know, to those of you, if you don't know Jeff is a Great Lakes dude. He's probably been a fishing guide longer than most of us dream of being a fishing guide. He's probably the most well-respected bait casting and instructor, out of the Cleveland area. And he's just a one of the darndest, nicest guys you ever meet in your life. There was a time where, me and Jeff weren't the best of friends, but, we became, sort of the best of friends over the last few years. And, he was a big part of this, like he was the guy that took weight out of my pack so that way I could carry extra water when it was, 100 degrees outside. He was the guy that opened this house and gave me a place to sleep. You know what I mean? So he's the guy that would call and check in or just drive by to see that I was good to go. And then, anybody think that he wasn't busy, he was filming a fishing show and everything else. And he just found time to be a part of that, a part of making sure that I could complete my journey. Alex Schoen came all the way from Ann Arbor just to hike a few miles with me, one of the days. Rob Pitts, he grabbed me in Cleveland and made sure I had a place to sleep for, that push through eastern Cleveland into toward the Pennsylvania border. They fed me dinner, everything else. I mean, they gave me a chance to rest, recoup, and get my sanity. Owen Murphy grabbing breakfast for me one morning. Jimmy Lamprost and Will Turret bringing me Gatorades along the journey and just giving me somebody to talk to. I mean, that's a big part of this. I don't think people really understand is 10 days, 300 miles, 40 pounds on your back. It's lonely, very lonely. Like I spent as much time fighting the heat and everything else as I did fighting myself. Like, I don't know. I mean, I listened. Somebody said, like, you got to fight your inner bitch. Have you ever heard that before?
I have not.
Like, my inner bitch must have been like 400 pounds because he was literally just beating the shit out of me. Just any bad negative thing I could think of along the way, she was just spewing it. And you had to learn how to fight it. You either gave in or you fought it. I fought it, But, for me, wasn't an easy goal, was not an easy task. It is definitely not something I would probably ever try to duplicate. Like, I think I showed myself I'm very much capable of doing the things I want to do still. I'm still sort of fat. I'd like to lose a few more pounds. You know what I mean? But, we can't help how God has made us. So, and I do like some of the bad foods we're not allowed to have. So, well, I'm not allowed to have, but I eat them anyways. So, you know what I'm talking about. So,
yeah.
Again, that goes back to, the inner kid in me when the doctor says I should not eat bacon or I should not have this because of my heart stuff. My inner kid's like, screw you, I'm going to have bacon. You know what I mean? So I'm fighting myself these days as much as the next guy.
Yeah. But also too, as we were kind of racking up kind of life lessons, for your boys and for other people, I mean, that understanding what friendship truly is, right? Like those people that are with you in the darkness, or you tell them that it's important to you and they're as committed to you achieving that goal as you are, right?
Yes, 100%. Like, for me, it was a big deal. Like I said, you learned a lot from that. I had, believe it or not, how friends are, friends try to have conversations. They talk to you. They try to push you through. They also try to motivate you at times. And, you hear everything when you're doing something like this, right? Everybody's talking. Everybody's got some kind of an opinion on something, so you hear all the bad stuff too. You hear the people, like, oh, he can't do this. You need certain type of training to be able to do this kind of mileage. Well, you weren't here for the months and months and months of training that was going on. Maybe just because you can't do it doesn't mean I can't do it. You know what I mean? So it was crazy to hear like what some people that you knew, people what they were saying when you were just trying to do something good. So yeah, you do learn who your friends are.
Yeah. And so, what was your fundraising goal and, how much have you collected so far?
So the goal was to raise 10 grand. And I think we finished at around 7,000, which, let's be realistic with the current political climate and the interests and inflation and everything else that's going on. I'm sure lacrosse isn't like a huge priority for people. And like, I respect that, you know what I mean? So to raise that kind of money, like, it was huge. Like, I'm just glad that people found merit in what I was doing and contributed that kind of money to these kids. Like, for me, that was a win.
Yeah. And I would imagine I think the last time we spoke, you've left the fundraising link open. You're going to leave it open for a little while after this interview comes out, right?
I did. Yes.
Yeah. So I will drop that in the show notes for you, but how long will that link be active so we can get people to actually move and put some money in the jar?
I mean, I'll leave it open through the end of the month. You know what I mean? Think about closing that thing on September 1st. Anybody wants to contribute to it, great. And if you want to see kind of what the journey was, like, that's available to you as well. You can go on Instagram and go to pack.mule300, and you can actually see I took videos, usually like 3 to 4 a day along each day, along the journey, to kind of give people updates of, where I was at, how I'm feeling, so they could kind of follow along. It's kind of hard sometimes to do social media when you're dying. That's how I felt like out there, like you're pushing to meet a goal, you're exhausted, but I think I did a good job. I think I represented well for my community, and, so like I said, it gave everybody a chance to follow along, see where I was at for the day, and, that kind of deal,
Yeah, I followed along, and I was like, when you're hiking and you're drying out socks, it's pretty serious business.
Oh yeah, like every 10 miles roughly, I was taking off my boots, taking off my socks. I packed a small collapsible chair, and I would teach myself to chill out, dry my socks out. That's part of this whole thing is, like, you set goals for yourself and you push too hard and you don't account for certain things and you hit a wall, you hit multiple walls every day and you just got to overcome them. But the taking the socks off and sitting there in the sun with my feet out, yes, it was wonderful. It's like some of the best times of the trip.
Only replaced with the beer, sticking your feet in the creek when you got to the end of the road, right?
That was pretty satisfying. It really hurt too. I mean, like hurt, like putting my feet in that 50-degree water, oh boy, brought, tears of pain and joy.
Yeah. And so, if we kind of recap, you're probably not doing another pack mule anytime soon.
No, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah. And you're not, 100% into fishing anymore. So, what are you doing with all that great free time you have?
Well, it's kind of like what we talked about in this whole podcast. I'm parenting, I'm hunting, I'm exercising, I'm camping. I love to cook. I'm cooking, and I'm doing these things for me. You know what I mean? I'm doing them for my family, my friends, and, just living life now. You know what I mean? I'm not worrying about the repercussions of losing my reputation on social media.
Yeah. So book number 3 idea is a cookbook.
You know what? I have those type of notes already written up to do, like a little fly tying, life story, cook thing. But then I'd be just like meat eater, and I don't want to do that. So, they already have too many campfire stories.
Yeah. And so, you've got your own online store for materials and flies and stuff like that, so if folks wanted to check that out, where should they go?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you need help, you can always call me at Schultz Outfitters. Like, that's what I tell everyone. Call me there. I'll help you do whatever you want. you don't want to talk to anybody and you just want to order online, you can go through my Greg Senyo Fly Tying that has, limited materials on there, and all my flies through Aqua Flies are on there. So they do the best commercial swung flies around. So that's where you would go get that stuff if you want.
Got it. And, what if folks want to follow your adventures at the vise, on the water, and in the field? Where should they go?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we can't anymore. Like my personal, go to my Instagram. You can follow if you want, but I don't put an emphasis on showing the world what I'm doing anymore. And but if you send me a message or you need help with something, like shoot it. I'll answer it when I see it. So, best thing to do is if you want me is to call me at the store or send me an email, which anybody there on staff would give you. And I hate to say it, maybe you'll see me a little bit on YouTube doing fly time videos for good old Mike there at the store. But that's it, man. Shit, Marvin, just to be honest with you, this might be the last podcast I do. I don't know if I really need to do another one. So hope everyone enjoys it.
Yeah. So you're becoming like the hermit Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine and Star Wars, right?
Yeah. Don't poke the bear. There won't have to be a new series.
There you go. Well, listen, Greg, I really appreciate you carving out a little bit of time for me. It's been fun.
No, man, I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to doing this podcast with you, and I hope you're out there enjoying your fishing time with your family, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
You bet. Take care.
Take care.
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed the interview as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Don't forget to check out Trout Routes Pro at maps.troutroutes.com. Use ARTFly20, ARTFLY20, all one word, to get 20% off your membership. Tight lines, everybody.